Here we go again with some more scandalous stories. Hopefully you guys are as surprised as I am with this next set of scandals, because some of them are pretty juicy. Some of these span from lawsuits to old Hollywood and everything in between. So let's just get into part 5 of the top 10 celebrity scandals you didn't know about, part 5. At number 10, Charlie Sheen. The show 2.5 Men was a pretty big show while it was still on the air, having had 12 seasons spanning from 2003 to 2005. It was one of the biggest and most successful sitcoms on TV. It was so successful, in fact, that Charlie Sheen took home a paycheck for $1.8 million an episode, and where there's money, there's people trying to take it. Back in 2006, Charlie Sheen was sued by a woman by the name of Ursula Arburn, who claimed that one of the characters in the show was based on her. She had claimed that, quote, wacky neighbor and female stalker Rose was based on her because the character shared similarities to the way Ursula spoke, looked, and dressed. She also claimed that Charlie based this character on her after they were romantically involved and never got her consent to use her as the basis for this character. Apparently, Ursula was one of Sheen's stalkers, and she actually admitted to this, so that's why she felt as though this character was based on her. As a result, she tried suing Charlie for, quote, no less than $1 million. The suit eventually settled out of court, though there are no records to go off of. She probably just saw an opportunity to get Charlie to notice her, and I guess it worked. At number 9, Michael Jordan. Imagine being sued by someone simply because you look similar. Sounds absurd, but it really happened to Michael Jordan back in 2006. A man from Portland, Oregon named Alan Heckard tried suing the basketball star because he was, quote, sick and tired of people mistaking him for Michael Jordan, and he sued for defamation, permanent injury, and emotional pain and suffering. It's an insane lawsuit, but Alan didn't stop there. He also brought Nike into things and sued them as well, claiming that they sabotaged his life because, quote, they were the company that made Jordan so famous, end quote. Alan said that the pain inflicted upon him by Michael Jordan and Nike would follow him for the rest of his life because he's had to deal with public harassment for so long. He also claimed that being a Jordan lookalike also impeded on his work and claimed that it also made it difficult to, quote, capitalize proper nouns or use a possessive form of nouns. Very, very specific, but okay. As a result of this, Alan was asking for a modest $832 million as compensation. Obviously, he never got it, but I hope he's doing okay now. Now, before I go any further, I'd like to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and also head on over to my gaming channel, Viper Girl, if you're in the mood for some chill gaming vibes with me. At number 8, Outkast. Back in the early 2000s, Outkast had us saying hey ya and had civil rights activist Rosa Parks saying hell no. Back in 1999, Rosa Parks sued the hip-hop duo for defamation after they released a song named after her and used her role in the Montgomery bus boycott as a reference in the song's chorus. The chorus that went, quote, aha, hush that fuss, everybody move to the back of the bus, was faced with scrutiny from Parks' estate because they were not authorized to use her name nor reference her without permission. The suit was eventually settled out of court, with Outkast being exempt from paying the $5 million in damage to the estate as was originally requested, and instead, quote, agreed to work with the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development to develop educational programs, end quote. At number 7, Judy Garland. There have been some serious horror stories about the treatment of celebrities in old Hollywood. The scandals that were covered up, the lengths that stars were forced to go to in order to stay relevant in the industry were pretty wild. One controversy that came out was the treatment of Judy Garland during her career. Known best for playing Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, Judy had actually been working in Hollywood since she was 13 and was being treated very poorly since the beginning. One of the biggest issues she faced while working was the studio's scrutiny of her weight. The executives at MGM would be very vocal about Judy's physical appearance, often calling her a pig, saying that she was too big. They had forced Judy to take diet pills from a very young age to the point that she became hooked on them. Her weight became a studio concern that plagued her career, with executives forcing her onto a strict diet of nothing but black coffee and chicken soup, along with 80 cigarettes and diet pills taken every 4 hours to suppress her appetite. Nobody deserves to be treated like this, and it is absolutely horrible that this was allowed to happen in the first place. Everyone is beautiful no matter what, and don't let anyone make you think otherwise. At number 6, Beyonce. In one of my previous videos, I told you guys about how someone once sued Beyonce for having used dark magic and witchcraft to ruin their life. Well, there are more bizarre lawsuits against Beyonce that you might not have heard of, one of which pertaining to her daughter Blue Ivy. A woman named Tina Seals filed a lawsuit against the singer demanding maternal rights and compensation because she claimed that she was a surrogate for Beyonce and Jay-Z's kid. Though this claim and subsequent lawsuit was wild, it was inevitably dismissed as the judge ruled that Tina's complaint, quote, lacks any arguable basis in law or fact, rises to the level of irrational, and there is no legal theory on which she may rely, end quote. But what made this whole ordeal a little juicier is the fact that the courts also discovered that she had filed 27 other lawsuits against people for similar reasons, including Kim Kardashian over the maternity of her daughter North. Talk about wild. At number 5, Gordon Ramsay. Celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay isn't the most scandalous person out there, but he's definitely not the cleanest. I mean, he's been sued by a lot of people for things like bad food, unpaid bills, and for just being mean, but there have also been some bigger controversies that you might not have known about. In 2019, Gordon Ramsay faced backlash for cultural appropriation after opening a restaurant called the Lucky Cat that was described as a, quote, authentic Asian eating house inspired by the drinking dens of 1930s Tokyo and the Far East. Just shortly after it opened, the restaurant was hit with a scathing review from food critic Angela Hui, where they called the restaurant a, quote, real-life Ramsay kitchen nightmare, end quote. She essentially made claims that this restaurant was inauthentic, remarking that there, quote, weren't even any chefs working there who were of Asian descent, and also pointing out that she was the only person in attendance who was of East Asian descent out of a room of 30 to 40 people. She also pointed out that the dishes were all an amalgamation of different foods from different East Asian cultures, not having any specific or authentic dishes from one place or another. Gordon hit back saying that he did not appreciate the slander she was writing, but other than that, this scandal pretty much went nowhere. At number 4, Clark Gable. Old Hollywood was just a whole lot of mystery and scandal hidden behind a bright, shiny sign. There is some dark stuff that went down back then, and it's only now that people are actually talking about it. One scandal that people might not know about concerns actor Clark Gable and his secret daughter. While starring in the 1935 film Call of the Wind alongside actress Loretta Young, Clark was involved in an extramarital affair with his co-star, and their affair ended with them producing a daughter. Because a scandal like this would have meant the end of their careers, they decided to cover it all up. Loretta tried to conceal her pregnancy as best she could and even came up with an elaborate plan to go on holiday as soon as her bump became a little too difficult to hide. She ended up having the baby and giving her up for adoption. Despite all of their effort to cover it up, they were eventually exposed because the baby, whom they named Judith, inherited Clark's signature ears. Now the deeper part of the story is NSFY, not safe for YouTube, but if you want to know more about it, Google is at your disposal. At number 3, Joan Crawford. Back in the early days of Hollywood, people would head to Tinseltown looking for their big break into stardom, and many would do anything just to get their face on a movie screen. Sometimes it was extra work, and sometimes it was a little more scandalous. Actress Joan Crawford actually got her start on a more scandalous movie set, as her first film was actually one exclusively for adults, if you know what I mean. Joan's first on-screen work was on a film called The Casting Couch, where she played the character of Gloria, a seductive young actress looking to launch her career. Over the course of her career, people actually threatened to blackmail Joan for old footage of her adult films, many of the blackmailers being members of her family. There's even an FBI file that says that she once paid one of her unknown blackmailers $100,000, and many believe that this blackmailer could have been her own brother. Back in these days, anything mildly scandalous would have been detrimental to their careers. Meanwhile, in today's age, something like an adult film would make you famous, i.e. Kim K. At number 2, 50 Cent. In one of my recent videos, I talked about how rapper 50 Cent sued Taco Bell because they used him in an advertising campaign without his consent. Well, now I have another scandal involving 50 Cent, but this time he's the one getting sued. In 2000, 50 Cent was involved in an altercation which resulted in him being shot 9 times. He was rushed to the hospital in very serious condition, but luckily he was provided the care he needed to recover from his injuries. After receiving significant surgery, Dr. Nader Paksima patched the rapper up and he was able to make a full recovery, but 3 years later, the doctor claimed that 50 Cent never paid his medical bills to cover his surgery, saying that over $32,000 was still owed. The doctor sued 50 Cent for having skipped out on this medical bill in 2003, but the rapper claimed that this was all just a ploy to get money that he didn't deserve. The rapper said that his doctor only thought that he got richer later on and wanted to exploit him and make him look bad in the eyes of the media, as he was also facing more legal trouble at the time for having canceled a concert in Boise, Idaho. That just wasn't a good time for 50 Cent, but at least he got a lot of experience with the court system because of all these lawsuits. And finally, at number 1, Christopher Nolan. If you're a fan of Batman, and then boy do I have an interesting story for you. In 2008, Christopher Nolan, the director of the Dark Knight films, was sued by a city in Turkey for using the name Batman because their city is also called Batman. The mayor of Batman, Turkey issued the lawsuit against the director, claiming that he was not given permission by the city to use the name Batman, explaining that because they used the name Batman, they were in turn responsible for, quote, a number of unsolved crimes and a high rate of personal tragedies because of the psychological impact that the film's success had on the city's inhabitants. It was a very extreme accusation. When this suit was first filed, a lot of people wondered why Christopher Nolan was the one getting sued for this and not other countless people who profited off the Batman comics, especially DC Comics themselves. The mayor of Batman was seeking royalties from the Dark Knight film as compensation for his city's misfortunes. This lawsuit never went anywhere, and Nolan went on to make The Dark Knight Rises without any trouble, but I hope they're doing okay over there in Batman. Now, I know some of you guys will have heard of some of these scandals before, but for those who haven't, I want you guys to tell me what surprised you the most about some of these stories, and has it changed your perspective on some of these celebrities. Anyways, that's been our list. I've been your host, Bree Room, and until next time, stay safe, be nice to people, and stay good, friends. Bye!